What's up, Simonics, and welcome back to a new part in our Build with Ionic series. Today we will tackle a new UI, and that is the Spotify. Once again, we're not using real data, we're just using mock data. I took this from the great repository on GitHub where someone, Caleb, created a lot of assets around React Native, and I will certainly use more of that in the future as well. So thanks again that I'm allowed to use these, Caleb. What we're gonna do today is we implement the Spotify UI in general by using a different theme for our application. We're gonna use custom fonts. We will move over to creating a tab bar with dynamic icons because they actually switch within the Spotify application. We will create horizontal, I don't know where we were. We will create a horizontal scroll view inside our application with a free mode. We're gonna go into the details page, and on that page use a lot of Ionic grid components, in general a lot of custom styling, and finally get to a custom directive which will enable us to scroll on a page, fade and resize an image, and also add a background gradient with a dynamic color. So really a lot in this tutorial. It took me actually a few days to figure out everything, so I really hope you enjoy it, you learn from these tutorials. You might not implement the Spotify UI, but you take certain concepts from this Build with Ionic series to build better Ionic applications. Speaking of that, if you want to get better with Ionic, check out the ionicacademy.com, which is my school to help you with everything Ionic. And if you're already a member, then that's fine. If not, check it out now. Otherwise, let's continue with the Spotify UI built with Ionic. Alright, so let's get started with our application. What I did so far is I created a blank new Ionic application. Well, it's actually not blank, it's using the tabs template. And I generated one additional page so we can dive into the details, and also a module for directives, and also one directive which we will use in the end. So that's the setup I did so far. Now, there are a few things we need to set up front. First of all, we can go to our tsconfig file and we can input two additional properties here. So resolve JSON module true and allow synthetic default imports true. The reason is that we're going to use local JSON data, which I already copied over to the assets folder, and to import them directly using Angular, we need to add those two lines to our tsconfig file. Now, if you want to follow, where do you get those assets? First of all, quickly, I used most, or basically all of the mock data from this Spotify UI clone with React Native. So thanks again for Caleb. I actually asked him to use those assets for the Build with Ionic series, and he agreed. So you can copy them from here, but I actually recommend that you pick my version. So I uploaded this to Ionic Spotify UI as well, and you can grab the assets folder here with all the assets that we need for this tutorial, because I applied a few changes because file names were kind of strange and that stuff. Now, if you got everything inside your assets folder, we can continue with the styling for our application. You will notice that, of course, Spotify has a quite different UI, and to have like the basics in place, I highly recommend the Ionic color generator. So within the Ionic color generator, I pick different colors for primary or dark, medium. It will automatically generate a new snippet that looks like this, and I will bring in the one from my tutorial already, and that one goes to our theme variables. There we go. We can replace this whole object in the beginning with the export that we get from the Ionic color generator, and you now see that now the primary is green. I actually don't know if Spotify has like a secondary color, but that should be fine. Now, we also want to apply another change to the general UI of our application right in the beginning, and we can do this inside the global SCSS. What we want to do is we want to make our new fonts available, which are inside assets font, bold, light, regular, and we can already add them to our global SCSS. We just need to supply the source to a specific font file and define which style it is, normal or bold, and then give it a name. So now, from now on, we can use this Spotify font inside of our pages, and that's basically the same procedure for all fonts that you're going to use with Ionic. So that is really cool, whatever I do in here. I also wanted to directly set the Ion content background to our dark color because, you know, that's the background from the Spotify application, and we can directly apply this at the top level of our application. Now we can focus on the tab bar for now. First of all, the album we generated is added to the app routing, which is not the right place for it. That's no problem. We can just go to the tabs routing, because if we click on an album inside this page, we of course want to stick with the tab bar and just push the new page. Otherwise, if you have the album page in here, of course the URL is different, and also you would leave the tab bar interface, since the page wouldn't be a child of the actual tabs page. Therefore, I will just put the entry into the tabs routing module, and then you just need to make this like this. And then you've fixed the path, and now album can be accessed within the tabs page. But of course, we're gonna pass some information to that page. So we also add a wildcard, let's say title. We're gonna actually pass a string with the URL because the IDs of the mock data didn't work 100% for me. So that will be interesting as well. Now, let's focus on the tabs page, SCSS, and tabs page. That's the first part of the application that we're gonna customize. So we should already see our tabs in here, but we're gonna change them. I will bring in the change, or let me bring it in for one example. First of all, what we want to do is, if you check out the Spotify application, you will notice that if you click on a different tab, not the color would change, but the actual icon. So they use either an outline icon or a full icon. And we can do the same with a little trick. So we're gonna keep track of the selected tab of our tab bar by simply making the tabs available as a view child. I think we actually don't need the name, but let's keep it in it for now. And then use the Ion tabs did change. Would actually be cool to have code completion from Visual Studio Code, perhaps an ID for an Ionic extension, so to list all these methods that you can use on components. Anyway, we're gonna call a function to set the selected tab, and we're gonna create it in our TypeScript file. Now we also need access to a view child. To the tabs view child. Actually, I think we could leave it open and just use Ion tabs instead. Let's give that a try. And then call this one tabs, and we also will get a nice code completion. We set the selected to an empty string in the beginning because set selected tab will actually be called right in the beginning. We will see this, and then we can set our own selected to this dot tabs get selected. This actually directly returns a string, which is nice. So this will return the name of the tab. So tab 1, tab 2, or tab 3. And that means if selected is equal to tab 1, we can use the home icon, and otherwise we can use the home outline icon. And now we can do this for both of our other tab buttons as well. We're gonna use search for this one and the library for the third one. And then let's hit save and see what's coming up. Okay. Is the change actually applied? I'm not so sure at this moment. I think we still need to put the right. Okay, yeah, you can see the change on the home icon. So now it is filled, now it is outlined. But the colors are still a bit wrong. So let's use two different rules. First of all, let's set the background to our medium color and then the selected button to white. That should make it look a lot more like the Spotify UI. And you see the icons change, we have that selected color, and I think that looks already pretty good like the Spotify UI. Now, if you check out the Spotify application, you know that there's this player view above here. We are not going to implement a full player, but we're here to implement the UI for a player. And I actually recommend that we do it right in here. Maybe we can now also get rid of that, because we're accessing the view chart directly as Ion tabs. Should work since we only have one Ion tabs in that view anyway. Great. We will just do this with a custom class. We call this one player, and it will be simply included in our Ion tabs. That makes it quite easy to manage the player if you want to from your tabs page, and it will be visible all the time. Of course, you usually have this progress bar at the top, so we're gonna do something like this, progress bar, and let's set default progress for now to 42. Usually you should have like some sort of played progress anyway that you can track. And within the progress bar, that will be like a gray background, and we can display in it the percentage that we already covered. So inside we're gonna have something else. It's basically the same like creating a progress bar for your downloads. That would follow completely the same behavior. So that bar would have a gray background and that one a white background. And since we set the width dynamically in here to something like progress plus percentage, it will just be like 42% of the whole width available. If we now go to our tabs page as CSS, we can get started. Let's put everything under player so we can easily track this. We're gonna give it a height of 55. I think that looks quite nice. For the background, let's use the medium color because I think it has the same background like the tab bar. Color medium, and then also the font family for this one should be Spotify. Color used should be white. And we're gonna make the font size small as well. So that's first of all the player. Now onto the progress bar. The progress bar should first of all cover the whole width of our screen, and it should have a small height like 2 pixels. I think that's kind of right. For the background, I picked just a little bit different color, but it's not the background attachment, it's just this one. So now we should see the progress bar. Let's hope, there we go, that's the progress bar. And by applying our progress, or by adding a different color here for the background, so white, and using the full available height, we have implemented a super simple progress bar. That's actually so fast. You could dynamically do this for downloads, so really no problem at all to adapt this for a download. Now within the player, we of course also have access to the data. We will now just use some mock data and fixed dummy data in here. We're going to use an Ion row. We're going to give the first column a size of 2, which should display the image. I will bring in the actual image. The path is to assets, images, albums. I just picked one of them. And for the other 2 columns, first one or the next one should get a size of 8, which means we still have space left for a column with 2 in the end. Here we should have the description, so I will just make this fixed as well. And in the end, we also got the icon. There's actually a sharp version of icons, which I found pretty cool. So if we remove this, check out the play icon. It changes from this sharp one to this rounded one. Actually, I think I never used that before. And we also got the Spotify font in here. That looks quite nice already. Now, if you also want to position things a bit better, let's say we see the text isn't really centered. In those cases, we can directly apply this to the Ion column, like Ion align self-center. And also our icon should be in the center. It isn't really in the center. So we're gonna pass to the column. Also Ion text center, Ion no padding. Should we use no padding in the middle as well? No, I don't think so. But Now, things look kind of strange. It looks like the height is wrong. So we need to go back to our tabs page and find out why it's wrong. And we can see that the image is actually bigger than that area. So it takes 52 pixels and also has some padding to the left and to the top. That will be the problem. So let's fix that by changing our column. Once again, we can basically do all of this with the Ionic utilities. We can set that the whole row has no padding on the outside, and also for our column, we're gonna use no padding. That should make sure that the image is completely, hopefully, sticky to the left and the top and fills out that area. But now we see another problem. The image is still too big. Now it's actually 62 if we inspect it, so 62 by 62. Therefore, let's say the image should always have a fixed height of 55, since that's also the height of our player, which will then not mess up our columns and make sure that everything is justified in the center. So both the text and the play button are now aligned. Always inspect those elements if you find an issue. If you have one big element inside the Ion row, you see it will make the other padding and stuff also mess up. So I think we've got the tab bar and our player view covered, and I think we can continue with the next page of our application, which should be our tab 1 page. Now, that one will be interesting. First of all, let's talk about the dummy data, which we got in the assets folder. We added in the beginning those 2 lines to the tsconfig, so we can now directly import data like this with Angular just from a file. For testing or for in general having local files, I think that's really handy. And now, based on the data that we got there, we're gonna create another array. Because if you've used the Spotify application, you know there are different sections and each of them can be scrolled horizontal. So we got the recently played list, the heavy rotation, all of these tracks and images that you see are actually from the React Native repository, so it's not my taste of music. Some maybe, but overall it's not what I was listening to. Now, the data is fine. Let's jump into our page directly. We actually don't want to have a header. Actually, we don't want to have anything of this. And we will start with a blank content. If you do something like this, you should take care of adding a little bit more padding to the general Ion content. The problem is otherwise on a device, this will like stick in the top area and it's just not super perfect. I tried with a blank header or blank toolbar, but none of that really clicked for me. So now we're gonna create an Ion row. We will once again get rid of the padding by using Ion no padding. If there's just one thing you learned from these built with Ionic series, it's perhaps that you can use those Ionic utilities. And we're gonna iterate let entry of data. We're gonna do a bit more, but for now, let's keep it like this. So we're going to create a column of the size 9, which will hold our section header. Let's give it a class so we can apply a bit more dynamic styling here. And then we're going to create another column because you see on Spotify there is one row that actually has a settings button. And I found this interesting. It's actually just a small thing, but we have this iteration and we only want to display this one once. Or the actual Ion button with the icon. We just want to display this one once. And to check this out, you can simply add to ng4 let is first equals first. There are a lot of other utilities that you can use here, is odd, is even, first, last, the index of course, and you don't have to come up with your own logic for this. It's really that easy. Just use ngIf is first and the button will only be displayed in the first row. You could easily make dynamic styling by using odd and even properties. So that's a really cool thing to keep in mind. We're gonna make the color of this one light since we're on a dark background. We already got the ngIf, we got the button, and we're gonna do hit save for now. Let's see if that actually works. Okay, we see something. Maybe we should directly start with the section header CSS. because we don't see anything. So let's change the color to white and the family to Spotify and add a bit more of margin. Cool, we got Spotify styling, we got one button in place. That button actually looks not 100% correct to me. Let's add Ion text end and perhaps Ion align self center. Let's see if that changes something. I think it should, like within our tab bar. Okay, yeah, we got the H2, which also got padding. Let's leave this one out. It looked better before. But anyway, we got the basic overview. That's cool. Now we just need the horizontal slides. We're gonna do this actually, we can just do it inside the Ion row without using another column. Should work fine. So let's use Ion slides. I'm pretty sure we're gonna use some options. Maybe we leave it out so you see the difference. Really, there's a lot you can do with the options on Ion slides. Then we got Ion slide ng4 let album of. Do we actually have a look at an album? Let's quickly do this before I do some like blind explaining of data. So we got here the recently played playlist with those elements. That means we want to iterate them. We want to use the image and the title of these. So let album of entry dot albums. Okay, you're maybe confused why I use this, but if you take a look once again back, we actually created our own data array. So of the data, we still need to access albums to actually get the data. That's the only reason we got entry.albums in here. We're gonna make this one tappable, and on click, we wanna call a new function open album. We're gonna pass the object to it as well. And within the Ion slide, we're gonna just put an image. Let me copy the source because I don't want to make any typos. The problem with the source is that the image name right here, swimming or Sea of Cowards, if you check out the mock data, the albums actually are with a dash, not like the camel case here. So in order to fix this, I could have either changed all the JSON or the names of the images, but in the end I just went with a help function. I don't know, really, there were a lot of other options to fix this, which is just dasherizing a string. Inside the schematics, there's also a function on Angular schematics, but we can just use it here. We will also use it in another place, so feel free to create a service or maybe even a pipe would be better. Perhaps we could have created a pipe, but that would have been boring, so you also need to do a bit of work. And then we can use dasherize to get the right name from one of the albums. But it's also just a small thing and not really changing anything of the general UI, I would say. Let's take a look. That looks great. Actually, no, that doesn't really look like anything. You see, it snaps, it's too big, it's not really like Spotify. So now enter options for Ionic slides. Let's create those options inside our page here. And what we want to define here is, we first of all want to make sure that slides per view is set to something like this. So 1.5, 2.4, something like this. So we got multiple images on. Hello, my friend. Okay, I didn't hit save on that page. Just to make sure that we see multiple images on one page and also a preview of the next one. Then you might also directly add a bit more of space here and there. We could do this from CSS as well, but why not do it directly with the options we got from slides? Now, what you also usually see in other applications is that, or in the Spotify application, is that you can just scroll through this naturally. And that is called free mode true. So right now, if you click a bit, it always snaps to a specific position. If we now change free mode to true, what's happening is that this is basically a natural scroll box that we can scroll through. And it works in all the locations here, and I still don't feel very comfortable. I think we need more CSS for the Ion slides. And also they're stacked a bit, so let's add to the Ion slides a margin bottom to separate them. And what's wrong with the actual images? Perhaps we need to get into them as well. Let's see what we can do. Did we forget about anything? Yeah, we need the title class, of course. I don't see the title at all. Where's the title? I think the color is the problem. So let's make them white and use Spotify as well. And then we're gonna see, okay, the title is actually to the right. The problem is that inside our tab page, this will just be displayed next to each other. If we change the display now to block and also a text align to the left, we can fix this. Everything will be on one line, and we got a nice separation here, there, and here as well. Okay, multiple slides. If you want to create an RSS reader, news application, or anything like this, there you go. This is your starting point. Okay, I think we've covered the screen so far. We need to implement our open function as well. But besides that, I feel like we got everything in that view already, right? I think so. So now for open album, we're just gonna grab the title from the album and we're gonna escape it. So title escaped. The reason is we're gonna use the router. Let's quickly inject this one, private router. We're gonna use the router like this. Navigate whatever by URL or anything else. The path should be tabs/tab1/ the escape title or the title in general. If we just pass a title now in here, like my cool song, it will be kind of a problem inside the URL. And therefore, I would always recommend if you pass a string inside your URL that you use the encode URI component. The title will, actually we see it in the top as well, but now I will also log it out. I think there's also something to click on a variable and then add a log in the next line for it. I really need that extension for Visual Studio Code. If somebody already has that, please leave a comment below. I definitely need that one. I do it quite often. So now let's see, I can click on, yeah, that was like the worst entry to click on. Let's use this one and you see it becomes a URL like this. Also, if we lock this one out, also in the wrong place, it's included like this. A lot better than just using the blank name. So where are we inside the recording? 25 minutes. Okay, we need to hurry up a bit. Let's close tab 1, tab 1, tab 1, and let's get into the album. Album page, SCSS, TypeScript. We're gonna replace a bit more in here now to speed up our video. Of course, you can find the whole code and all explanation as well in the link below this video. But we need to make this at least below an hour. No, just kidding. We're gonna do this in a few moments. So, on our details page, we need access to the activated route since we're passing information through the URL. Therefore, grab it from there, decode it since we encoded it, and then we got the decoded title. Now, the creator Caleb created actually something cool. If we check out assets and the albums folder, inside the, where is it? Inside the albums folder, or in which folder? Mock data albums, there should actually be a JavaScript file. I can't see it right now. It's in mock data. I was in images. In the albums, there's actually index.json file, which exports all the different JSON files under a specific key. That's quite cool. And that means we can just import this albums object and access the data. Data equals null. Access the data by title. Of course, in reality, it wouldn't be like this. But if you check it out, albums, mock data albums, I think we can get rid of that one. Then we got our data. Let's put a log to this line. Once again asking you to create an extension. So this data, just to see what we got available on that page. And as far as I know, we're also gonna need the dasherize function again. Don't hate me, it's not dry today. So here we go, we're on the page and we got Billie Eilish, we got a background color, that's the interesting part here. We got an array of tracks that we want to display. So all of the information that we need to create a nice, cool album page. So for the Ion title, we're gonna use the Elvis operator to safely access the title. Remember, if a value is in the beginning null, it will be also in the template null, so you need to keep track or care of that. For the Ion toolbar, we will now use the custom background color, and we can do this by using style.background. So you can actually directly access the Ionic CSS variables of a component like this. In the past, I always asked myself how that would work, but you can really just do it like this and then use data.background color. And if you spell it correctly, we should now see the custom background color of Billie Eilish applied to the top. Let me show you something else. So we see now it is blue. Let's go back to Billie Eilish. All right, we also need a back button, so we can finally go back in differently. Just the default back button. We can override the text, so it doesn't have any text anymore. And there we go. Now we can navigate around. Feels good. Let's stick to Billie Eilish. Now the interesting part begins. I will wrap the whole content in ngIf since we need to access the data in a lot of different places. Now the first part is to display the image. Once again, dasherize. A few classes here and there applied, but we can actually get rid of that. Okay, we got that great image up there. Now we need to come up with a way to display all the tracks. That's just going to be a simple Ion list with item iterating the tracks, displaying the title and artist, and an icon in the end slot of the item. So that should make our list look interesting. You see, we got a few problems here because the Ion list or the Ion items actually have their own colors, and therefore we're going to change them. So the Ion item background will be set to transparent since our background is dark anyway. The paragraph, which is this little line, gets a different color, and usually it's white. And I think we haven't applied the font family. I'm actually not sure if they're using Spotify in that place as well, but let's just use it. Looks kind of the same to me. Well, we're getting there. The Ion list also gets a dark background color. If you want to check out how it looks otherwise, just use random colors and then you will see in which places the different colors are actually used. Sometimes my view is pretty colorful when I'm debugging different elements of the view. Now we also need this little area where we got like the name and some place settings icons. We can wrap all of that once again in an Ion row. For the artist, we're gonna use the hold space available and we're gonna add a bit of styling, and then the rest is just a column of 8 with basically, let's see it inside our view, and let's get rid of the red one. Okay, so you see we got the icons. At the end, we now also got the play circle. And we're gonna need some more styling. Maybe we could have set the general color for basically everything inside our application to white. Might have made sense. Let's also use for the title and content, and I don't think we need it for item then anymore, the font family. And for the album info, we also gonna use white color, and as we can see, perhaps, yeah, we will see it once we get there. We also needed a bit of additional margin here. In some places we don't have that correctly, so in that case we need to manually make sure everything is aligned. We could maybe even add margin to the right. Let's do this, margin right. Is it also 11? I can't see it exactly. Maybe not. Yeah, didn't work. Is it padding? Yeah, I also try sometimes between margin and padding, although I know, but sometimes there's different results. Right now we don't actually have any result. Let's keep it like it is. The interesting part about this page is now how we implement this behavior inside the Spotify application, where you swipe up, an image fades out and also gets a bit smaller. Also, we haven't used the dynamic color in all the places, so that's also something to tackle. And therefore, we now need to get creative. There are different problems. I actually don't know if we start at the beginning or in the middle, because I tried like 50 different approaches until I found something that works. Now, first of all, for the Ion content, I want to set a linear gradient background color. Let's say just from red to green. Now that's, let's use red and blue just to see how it looks like. Will this be displayed? I'm actually not sure. Okay, it will be displayed. So we see it up there because it's transparent. We see that in the background there is actually a gradient. The reason for this gradient is that if you're on iOS and pulling this down even more, you can usually see the background of the page. And that's a problem if we have like a gradient usually here behind the image, but then you pull up and you see that like the bare bones of that page. Can't show you this, would have, maybe I will do it. Let's quickly check it out on a device. Yeah, we're going to check out on a device the application, but for a second, let's take one step at something else. And that is the actual image box. So that doesn't look like this inside the real Spotify application. Also, if we now scroll out, we see the image completely disappears, and it should be kind of fixed in that position while this swipes above it. And therefore, I gave the image box a fixed position and a different index. So now it is like this. The problem now is, of course, that our Ion row is starting completely in a wrong place. So we should add at least a certain padding to that row. So now we can scroll it. It is above the image. I had a little problems figuring out the right indexes, but now we got that in place. Now let's start with something easier. We will keep this commented out for a second because we now want to apply a gradient to the whole page. That gradient should be behind the image and basically behind everything. So we're gonna wrap our whole Ion row inside another class. The reason it's not applied to Ion content, I will tell you in a second why. So let's make this div around everything with a class main. And for the class main, we can now use custom background once again. So main, it will actually have a higher index. So let's just use, I think 2 should be fine. We should be above everything else. And we can set the background. Now we want to make our gradient based on the background color variable. So inside the data, we got the background color. So how do we set that information? Well, we can use a custom CSS variable on our own. Let's say we want to make this from a variable that we call custom background to blue. We just now need to set the custom background color variable. I think we can do this actually in wherever we want. Let's just do it on Ion content. Just like we used the background color up here, we can now set our own color to data.background color. And if we hit save, where's the image? We see that we now got this nice little gradient here using that color. And if I go somewhere else, it would be a different color. Well, they all have a kind of blue. That one's a bit different. But of course, we don't want to fade from our custom background to blue. We want to fade to the dark background. Ion color dark. That should already look a bit better. Let's go to, I don't know, somewhere here. But we see the fading isn't correctly right. And also you finally see this bounce problem that we got. So now first of all, we're gonna apply to the linear gradient some certain positions. So this one, make sure that I think it ends at 20%. Let's hit save, or we also need it in combination with this one. So this one should start at 30%. That makes the fading a lot better and fits nicely here into our view. So that's a nice little linear gradient. Now you see this problem. I really don't like that. And the fix for this, in my opinion, was to add to the ion content another linear gradient. Once again, using the custom background, but now I will just set this to 400 pixel and this one as well. Or let's do 200 first. If you set both values or different values of the gradient to a specific value, they will have a sharp edge. So now you see that, let's do red for comparison. Now if we go back here, you see that if I pull far enough, there's a hard or a sharp red edge. I'm sure at 400 pixel, nobody will be able to scroll there anymore. So we're gonna make this 400, this 400, and now we got the linear background using the same colors in the background. It feels like it's infinite. In fact, if I could pull even more, I might reach the threshold, but right now it's like perfect. We've covered that area. It's a little hack for this bounce stuff we get on iOS, and the rest still works fine. Okay, that didn't only took us long in the video, it also took me long to figure this out, but I hope it helps you to build a cool background for your next Ionic application. I think with everything that we got in place, we can now focus on the final part, which is the directive. Therefore, let's quickly open the directive and the module, because on scroll, we want to fade out the image and make it a bit smaller. So first of all, inside the shared directives module, make sure that you actually export the image fade directive as well, and then you can directly close it. And when we export it, we also need to import the shared directives module in the place where we're gonna need it. Now the image, the app image fade directive is kind of like the one we used in the Twitter tutorial as well. It gets an input, which will be the cover image, and then we can react to different changes. We will react to the changes of the ion content. So therefore, we're gonna add our directive to the ion content. So to make this, just go into the album page, add perhaps next line, app image fade, the name of the directive, and then a reference to the actual image. I think we will add the template reference here. So we're passing this div element to the directive, and to make sure that the Ionic is the ion content is also putting out the scroll events, we're gonna add scroll events true and full screen true. That just makes the view look a bit better in the end. That means we got this cover image and we can influence how that box looks like. To do so, if you want to change DOM elements, you usually need the renderer and the DOM controller, and we implement once again a host listener function so we can listen to the output of the ion scroll events. We can directly now grab the difference from top. If you don't trust me, you can just log it out, and then we should be able to see, let's see. Can't bind to it is a known property of ion content. That usually means this page shared directives module wasn't picked up correctly. Yeah, let's just restart. Yeah, I was using Capacitor live reload actually, so takes a second. Let's run the live reload again. And we can already go back, yeah, use whatever you want. And we can go back to the image fade directive. Actually, it's pretty easy. We just want to calculate a new value based on our scroll position. And we're going to create a new opacity, and we're going to create a new padding. And once we got all of those values, we will use the DOM controller to batch write these updates to our DOM. Now the new opacity should start, of course, at 100. If we directly use scroll top, it will fade out quite quickly, so I divided everything by 3 and I wanted to make it at least 0. So thanks for someone on Twitter who optimized this function for me. Actually, for the padding, I didn't found a better way to write it than this. We already got a padding of 15, I think. Yeah, padding left and padding right 15 here. So we will start at 15 and add more padding while we scroll. Now we should hopefully see, yeah, we see the output here. So you see those are the values from Ion Scroll, and now at the top we're back at 0. And at the most we want to have a padding of 100. Now we can write all of these new values, the new opacity and the new padding, using the renderer to our cover image. We will change the opacity to the new opacity and the padding to the new padding. And that means if we now check out our application, that we add everything else as well correctly. I think so. Let's check it out. The image gets smaller, it fades out, it comes back, and actually also has this bounce effect where it gets bigger. So this view, I'm kind of proud of this view because it, to me, really feels quite natural. It took me a few hours to figure this out, but now I think it's kind of perfect. We can go to others. Let's check out Billy once again. Billy is also working, and whatever with different colors also working. Also, all the indexes are right. The text is above the image. So really everything is now in the right place, and you really can't imagine how long it took me to get all. It looks so easy, but it wasn't. It definitely wasn't easy. But now I will continue playing around with this for some more minutes. Alright, that brings us to the end of today's Build with Ionic series. I hope you enjoyed the Spotify UI. We learned a lot about dynamic backgrounds, using certain directives, passing information, reading JSON data, customizing the toolbars. So once again, a lot in this new tutorial. If you want to see other applications built with Ionic, leave a comment below, and of course as well if you enjoyed the video or want to see something else, and hit the like button, I think it's in that place, and subscribe to the channel for more Ionic videos and web development videos in the future. Also, don't forget to check out my ionicacademy.com, the place where I teach like 50+ courses by now about Ionic. If you watch it in a few months, it will be likely more content because there's new content every month and a great community where you can ask your Ionic questions. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've been Simon, this has been Built with Ionic. Happy coding and see you next time.